Hey, what's going on guys? Nick from Confident Video here, and I am back from Japan after a very long 12 days of me being in Japan. I did a lot of stuff, and I will be talking about everything that I did at a later date. Actually, I'm going to be doing that with Marshall from Red Dawn Fury, so him and I will kind of be having this podcast where I share pictures, he asks like any kind of questions that he might have, and I kind of just talk about my general trip in Japan. But today's video is going to be 5 things that I think everybody should know about Japan before they even start going to the country. And they're really basic things. Some of them are kind of silly, they're kind of weird things you might not think about, and some of them are just really important in my opinion, especially if you are kind of on the fence about going to Japan and you are like, well, really, should I go, should I not go? And I do even think that these are useful for somebody, even if you're leaving tomorrow. If you're flying out tomorrow morning to go to Japan and you don't know these things, I do think it's very useful for you guys to know these kinds of things. And I know I was only in Japan for about 12 days, so I really don't know everything about the country, but I do think that from being in Japan for that long, I kind of get a grasp on how things work there. So here are 5 things that I think you should know about Japan before going. And the first thing is, and this is actually something I had to research on for my class, because for those that don't know, I went to Japan for 12 days with 16 people from my college on top of my professor that went, and then we also had somebody from Japan that went with us that also helped us with translations and stuff like that and taught us the language. So my report was on the Japanese education system, so I do know quite an extensive amount of information about that. And one of the things is that a lot of the Japanese people that live in especially the Tokyo area know a little bit of English, and they should know more because the education system is required to teach them a lot more English. However, they are required to learn English in Japan while they're in school. That's just something that they do. A lot of them don't either remember it or they don't get taught it well enough for them to remember. This hopefully will change soon because the Olympics are going to be in Tokyo very, very soon. So they're trying to kind of help get that to be a little bit better of a curriculum. But as of right now, most of them do know at least some English, and while they do know some English, they won't be able to communicate with you that well. There are obviously going to be people that study English more extensively than others. It's kind of like Spanish in our education system in the United States. Some of us go on and pursue Spanish for 4 or 5 years and they're somewhat fluent in it, and some people only take the minimum requirement, and that's the same in Japan. There are going to be more people there that I feel like know a little bit of English, and there are obviously going to be people that are very fluent in English. But don't use English as a crutch. I think you should learn the Japanese language at least a little bit before you end up going, because otherwise you're just going to be lost. There are going to be people you'll have to talk to that just might not know any English whatsoever, and you'll have to try to figure out ways to communicate with them. And learning certain Japanese words will really help with that. Even if you just take like 1 semester's worth of Japanese, that should be significant enough, because you are going to know the basic words that you'll need to be able to communicate with somebody that, let's say, you're going to be buying something from, if you're trying to order food, if you're trying to read a sign that's written in katakana or hiragana, you'll be able to read those. So just the basic understanding of the Japanese language, I feel like, will help you, because relying on the fact that everybody in Japan speaks English is just not realistic, because some people, even in the southern parts of Japan, in Kyoto and stuff like that, I barely ran into people that spoke any English like at all. So it was just something that you have to keep in mind before you end up going to Japan, is that you might have to learn a little bit of Japanese, and it's quite a bit of hard work, especially if you don't really like learning different languages like myself. It is very challenging, but it is also very rewarding when you are saying stuff to somebody in a different language and they understand what you're saying. So the next thing that you should know about are what JR passes and Suica cards are in Japan, and you should, if you're somebody that's going to Japan tomorrow, you should probably already know what these are, and if you don't, Jesus, like, God help you. Like, you're gonna be so fucking lost when you go to Japan, and like, there's like no way that you should know what these are. But so the JR pass, this is what the JR pass looks like. It might depend, the cover might change on the season, and it's for the Japan Railways Group, which is what JR stands for. and these passes are specifically only being able to be bought by foreigners traveling to Japan, and these are only able to be obtained by giving a valid passport to somebody in Japan. And what's great about these is that, as you can see, I don't know if you can see this part, it's basically a pass that you show to a station master when you're walking through the station to go to the JR lines, and it is a flat rate fee for unlimited rides for the amount of the period that you have it for. So mine was for 7 days because we really didn't need it all that much, because we were actually in Kyoto for a little bit, and there's other train lines that aren't JR that you cannot use these for. But these are really useful, especially if you're going to be in the Tokyo area, because JR is the primary rail line for most of Tokyo. It pretty much can take you anywhere. You'll get to all the major stations in Tokyo from the JR line, and a 7-day pass is about $300-ish, which sounds like a lot, but if you're traveling a lot and you're taking the trains everywhere, that's gonna add up really fast, and you're gonna end up saving money from this. So I do recommend getting a JR pass, especially if you're going to be traveling on trains a lot. And if you really aren't, if you're gonna be staying in like one area, or if you're gonna be in an area that might not have many JR lines, obviously this would not be for you. The other thing that you could get would be a Suica card, which I actually would recommend getting anyway, because there might be times when you wouldn't be able to use the JR pass. And what a Suica card is it's almost like this thing that you put money on. It's like a prepaid card, and there's other versions of them in Japan. There's like there's one that starts with a T, I don't know what it's called, but a Suica card can be used at every single train station to my knowledge. And when you go to a gate, all you gotta do is all you have to do really is take out your wallet and push it up against the scanner, and the card is powerful enough to scan through your wallet, unless if it's like an anti-theft wallet or something like that. But it's a prepaid card that you pretty much put money on, that you can use for train tickets, you can use it for vending machines, you can use it to buy things at stores that have the readers, and it's a really useful tool, especially if even if you're only going to be using it for train tickets. But if you don't like carrying around a ton of Japanese coins, because you will be carrying around a lot of coins when you go to Japan, it's really useful. You don't really have to worry about counting money. However, don't rely on that for buying stuff, again, because not every store accepts those because it needs a special reader. But if you are going to be taking the trains a lot and you don't want to get a JR pass, because if you're going to be spending less than $300 on train tickets, you probably shouldn't even be getting a JR pass anyway. So Suica cards and JR passes are your friend, because they are super easy to use. You don't have to worry about buying train tickets ever, so you don't have to worry about doing the thing, unless if you're buying like a bullet train ticket or a reserved seat ticket, then you'll have to worry about it. But most of the time when you're traveling in Tokyo or in any place in Japan, you really don't need to worry about it that much. So I do really recommend getting one of these, because they're just so nice. You don't really have to worry about messing anything up at all. This is kind of more of like an opinion kind of tip, I guess I should say, and that is to kind of learn the way that Japanese people kind of do everyday things. And the reason why I think this is because I really don't think just because you're traveling somewhere and you're a tourist, it doesn't necessarily mean that you should be ignorant to the culture when you go there. I think you should be respectful to any culture that you go to, and I think a lot of that kind of comes up with education and preparation. So kind of one thing I really didn't even know until I got there was like something like escalators. Now in Japan, anybody that's just going to stand on an escalator, you stand on the left side, and if you're walking up the escalator, you stand on the right side. I was told that that's how it's supposed to work here, but I never see that ever used like at all, so I didn't know anything about that. Another thing is kind of how to do the checkout process whenever you're buying something. A lot of places you'll just see a tray, and what proper manners is you put the bill face up or your change or whatever, and then you slide it with both hands to the cashier, and that's usually common practice. If they don't have one of those, you usually kind of just go like this, like with your money, and that's kind of the common practice that's used in Japan. And I just think it's kind of just nice to do, because it kind of shows that you're willing to learn to what they're used to doing, and it kind of makes you look like a little bit better of a person, in my opinion, especially if you're a traveler, because it just makes you kind of look like you actually care about their culture a lot more. A couple other ones that I put down are like greetings, so like using certain types of greetings depending on the certain time of the day is important. If you say konnichiwa in the morning, people will be pretty confused and they'll kind of laugh at you. Well, they won't laugh at you because Japanese people are generally polite. But if you use like ohayo gozaimasu in the morning and then konnichiwa for the afternoon, like konbanwa for like the evening, they'll be pretty impressed, and most of the times they'll actually really admire your effort to learn the Japanese language. And then another thing that I chose was parties, because if you end up going to any sort of work party, if you wanted to work in Japan, or if you visit some friends and they go to an izakaya and they go drink, it's pretty important to kind of learn how the parties work. So when you toast, you got to learn how to know how to do that. You got to learn how to end drinking parties, and it just comes down to a lot of learning. And if you really do want to go to Japan and you really want to immerse yourself in the culture, because it's just so vastly different, then a lot of research and preparation is pretty much required in order to survive. The next one, which a lot of people really don't kind of understand, is you'll have to walk a lot. And when I say walk a lot, I mean you'll be walking like a lot. We recorded our steps most days on people's Fitbits and phones, and on average we were doing about 22,000 steps a day, which it depends on how many steps you take, how wide your strides are, but that can be anywhere from like 6 to 10 miles a day, which is a lot. So if you're not used to walking a lot, or if you have problems walking long distances, you probably shouldn't go to Japan, because there's no way you'll survive. If you want to go to places like temples and stuff like that, if you want to go places that are kind of like off the beaten path, if you want to go to like Ueno and you want to go to like a certain store, you might have to walk 10 minutes to get to that store. And while that might not seem like a long time, you gotta walk that 10 minutes back, and then you probably gotta stand on the train for 20 minutes to get back to your hotel, and then you get to the station that your hotel's at, and then you gotta walk another 10 minutes to get to your hotel. It adds up very quickly, and if you're not used to walking, then you'll have to learn how to deal with it. And if you're somebody, I don't walk a lot, and I was able to deal with it very easily. But there are other people out there that I know that have problems with walking, like they have back problems or their feet hurt after a long time. And if you have that issue, make sure to get that checked out before you go, to make sure you're alright with going. Check with a doctor or something like that, because it's a lot of walking, especially if you want to do a lot in the time that you're going to be there. The last thing that I have is that if you're a picky eater, you're going to have a really hard time in Japan. And I was a picky eater, but one thing I really actually did learn about myself when I was in Japan is that I actually like a lot more food than I give myself credit for. If you are going to Japan thinking that there will be a lot of McDonald's around the area, you're right. There are a lot of McDonald's, there are a lot of KFCs, and there are a lot of stuff like that that are American style. However, I really don't think that if you're going to Japan you should be eating that kind of food, because it's more about, when I think of traveling, I think of trying new things. And if you're someone that absolutely does not like fish, like, you will never be caught dead eating fish, and I was too, but I tried Japanese fish and it's amazing. But if you're a person that does not like fish and you will never eat fish, or you're allergic to fish, if you're allergic to fish, you just probably shouldn't just go to Japan, like, ever. Just don't step foot in the country, because you'll have a really hard time finding food that you will be able to enjoy. Obviously they have like chicken, pork, and stuff like that, but a lot of the food that they eat involves fish, and it's a lot of weird food, so you have to be open to trying new things, because otherwise you're just going to starve. Like, especially like if you go in a school group, or you go as like a vacation with like friends and they want to go somewhere where there's fish, you're gonna have a hard time. But even if you think you don't like fish, I'm not saying that you shouldn't go to Japan. Like, if you have a serious allergic reaction to fish, then that's when I would probably say you should start getting more concerned. However, if you just are someone that are just like, ew, gross fish, I would still say go to Japan and just try everything, because I didn't like fish at all. Like, I don't like fish. I don't like fish fry. Fish fry is pretty big here. I don't like fried cod or anything like that. But I tried raw fish and it was pretty good. Like, I enjoyed it a lot. It didn't taste like what I thought fish should taste like. Fish in Japan tastes like almost just like meat, and it's really good. So I just recommend just trying new things. And then I actually do have one more thing that I would like to say, and I might make this into a whole nother video, but if you're going to Japan because you want to buy anime stuff, then you probably should just save your money and just go to a convention. And the reason why I say this is because there are a lot of people that I've encountered talking to casually on like Facebook and stuff like that, that primarily want to just go and buy anime stuff. And like, while there's a lot of it there, that's not all that Japan is, and it just seems to me like a waste of money. Obviously it's up to you, but if you want to go to Japan just to buy anime stuff, you're gonna have a really hard time, because there are only a few places that actually have a lot of anime like stuff, like stores. There are always going to be a couple anime stores in the weirdest places, but Akihabara and Ikebukuro are the two main places that are going to have a lot of anime stuff. And if you're only going to buy anime stuff, those are the only two places you probably are going to explore. Obviously you can go and buy anime stuff, I'm not saying that, but I do think that you should just try to immerse yourself a little bit more. Try to dig a little bit deeper into their culture than just the anime aspect. I hate to crush your dreams. If all you wanted to do is go buy anime stuff, you'll probably realize that it's a pretty big waste of money, because while it's cheaper to get stuff in Japan, it's not worth the about $5,000 you'll probably spend on a flight and a hotel going to Japan. So, hate to break it to you, but just go to a convention and pay $20 extra for that figure that you want to get that's apparently Japanese exclusive. Hate to be a negative Nancy with that last one, but that's actually going to do it for this video. I hope you guys did enjoy. I do have a lot more videos planned. I'll be talking about Japan quite a bit more in some of my other videos. I do want to try to educate you guys a little bit more about kind of how you can do things in Japan, like certain places you can go and stuff like that. I don't have any video of me in Japan because I didn't want to live through my camera. I wanted to actually experience it for myself. I did take a lot of pictures though, however I do want to just kind of tell you guys about these areas, and then you can kind of research them yourselves. And I do think that there's a lot of interesting places in Japan, and a really actually good example, if you want to know about a lot of cool places in Japan, actually a lot of places that I went, this guy's already covered, but Solo Travel Vlog is this really hilarious guy that lives in Japan, and he talks about the places in Japan that he goes to, and there's a lot of places that he goes to, and if you're ever planning on going to Japan, I would seriously check out his channel because he goes to a lot of different cool places. His link will be in the description below as well. So that's going to do it for this video, guys, and remember, I don't have a huge ego, I'm just pretty confident.